Did you know that according to some studies, nearly 1 in 3 relationships has experienced some form of emotional abuse? People hear a statistic like that and they think of shouting matches, of slammed doors, and thrown plates. They picture the obvious conflict. But the most dangerous kind of abuse isn't loud. It's quiet. It's a poison that's dripped into your ear so slowly, so methodically, that you mistake it for medicine. It's called gaslighting, and it doesn't start with an argument. It starts with a story that's too good to be true. This is the first and most critical stage, idealization. But I don't call it that. In my line of work, we have a different name for it: reconnaissance. When a manipulator enters your life, they don't see a partner, they see a target. The initial phase, what therapists call love bombing, isn't about affection. It's an intelligence-gathering operation. They aren't trying to win your heart, they're trying to map your mind. They study you. They learn your deepest fears, your proudest achievements, your secret insecurities, and every single one of your unmet needs. They listen with an intensity that feels like soul-deep connection, but it's the focus of a cryptographer studying a code. Every vulnerability you share is a password they're logging for later use. They mirror your dreams back to you, becoming the perfect custom-made answer to a prayer you didn't even know you'd been whispering. I remember a case, a wealthy widow named Eleanor. She met a man, a supposed philanthropist, at a charity gala. He was charming, attentive, and seemed to understand the loneliness that had followed her since her husband's passing. He didn't just compliment her, he complimented the very things she was most insecure about: her business acumen, which her late husband had always dismissed, her taste in art, which her children called old-fashioned. He was building a file. He learned that her greatest fear was being seen as incompetent, and that her deepest desire was to leave a meaningful legacy. For 6 months, he was the most supportive man she'd ever known. He encouraged her to make bold investments, to set up a new family trust, all under his expert guidance. He wasn't romancing her. He was casing the joint. The love was just the tool he used to get past the alarm system of her intuition. In your own life, this reconnaissance looks like the partner who insists you're a genius, a hidden talent, someone the world has tragically misunderstood. They tell you, no one has ever understood you the way I do, and it feels incredible. Psychologically, this is a form of hypervalidation. It's so intoxicating because it targets the parts of ourselves we feel are most unseen. But it's a trap. They're not building you up. They're building a pedestal so high that when they kick it out from under you, the fall is guaranteed to break you. They need you to believe in this perfect image of them and of yourself through their eyes, so that when they start chipping away at it, you'll think you are the one holding the chisel. So, I'll ask you this. Have you ever been in a relationship where the beginning felt like a fantasy, almost supernaturally perfect? Did they seem to know exactly what to say to soothe your oldest wounds? Be careful. An expert in interrogation knows that the best way to get information is to make the subject feel completely safe and understood. A manipulator does the same. They're not looking for a partner, they're looking for the schematics to your entire operating system. Once the reconnaissance is complete, the manipulator has their file on you. They know your triggers, your pressure points, and the precise frequency of your self-doubt. Now, they move to the second stage. This is where the foundation of your reality begins to get hairline fractures. Therapists call it subtle questioning, but from an investigator's perspective, it's a campaign of quiet corrosion. The goal here is not to argue with you, but to make you argue with yourself. It's a slow, methodical process of turning your mind into an unreliable narrator of its own story. The poison is administered in such small doses, you don't even register that you're being sickened. This stage is all about plausible deniability. It's the art of planting a seed of doubt with a question, a gentle correction, a look of mild confusion. It sounds like, "Are you sure that's what they said? You seemed a little stressed that day." Or, "Honey, I think you're remembering it wrong. It wasn't a big deal." The phrase, "I think you're being a little sensitive," is the unofficial anthem of this stage. Notice the pattern. They aren't saying you're wrong. They're suggesting that your perception is flawed, your emotions are overblown, your memory is faulty. They are positioning themselves as the calm, rational center, while you are presented as the unstable, emotional variable in the equation. I worked on a financial fraud case years ago involving two business partners. Let's call them Frank and David. David was slowly siphoning money from their joint accounts, but he was brilliant at this stage. When Frank would question a discrepancy, David wouldn't get defensive. He'd pull up a different spreadsheet, look genuinely puzzled, and say, "I think you're looking at the old numbers, Frank. Remember we talked about the revised forecast last week? You were distracted with that big client call." He would do this repeatedly. Over months, Frank started to genuinely believe he was becoming forgetful and unable to keep up. He'd apologize to David for being accusatory. David never once had to raise his voice, he just gently and consistently corroded Frank Ewan's confidence in his own competence until Frank handed over complete control of the finances, just to be safe. This is a classic psychological tactic. It induces a state of cognitive dissonance, which is the mental discomfort experienced when holding two or more contradictory beliefs or values. You believe you are a sane, competent person with a good memory. The manipulator consistently presents evidence that you are forgetful, over-emotional, or irrational. To resolve the discomfort of holding these two opposing ideas, the path of least resistance is often to abandon faith in your own perception. It is easier to believe, "I must be going crazy," than to believe, "the person I love and trust is deliberately trying to make me feel crazy." Your brain, seeking harmony, will often choose the explanation that preserves the relationship, even at the cost of your own sanity. Think about it in a simple, everyday context. He forgets to pick up the dry cleaning. When you mention it, he says, "You never asked me to." You're sure you did. But he's so calm, so certain, so genuinely convinced you never said it, that you start to wonder, did I only think about asking him? Did I dream it? That tiny moment of self-doubt is the beachhead. From there, an entire invasion can be launched. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling confused, even though you went into it with absolute clarity? Have you ever apologized for something when you weren't entirely sure what you did wrong? That's the fog of this campaign. It is not about winning a fight, it is about making you question if there was ever a fight to begin with. After weeks or months of quiet corrosion, your confidence in your own perception is shaky. You've been conditioned to second-guess yourself. Now, the manipulator can escalate. Welcome to Stage 3, Overt Denial. This is where the plausible deniability of the previous stage evaporates. The mask doesn't just slip, it's taken off and set on the table for you to see. This isn't about gentle suggestion anymore. This is about brazenly rewriting reality and daring you to challenge it. It's the shift from, "I think you're misremembering," to, "That never happened. You're making things up." This stage is designed to shock your system. They will deny saying things you have in writing. They will deny being at places where you saw them with your own eyes. The sheer audacity of the lie is the weapon. It's so bold, so absolute, that it throws you into a state of utter confusion. Your mind scrambles to make sense of it. Could I have possibly misunderstood a text message that clearly says, "I will be there at 8 p.m.? Could I have hallucinated seeing their car at a bar when I drove by? It's a direct assault on your sanity. The goal is to make you feel untethered from reality itself, creating a world where the only truth you can rely on is the one they provide. I once interrogated a con artist, a man named Julian, who was a master of this. We had him on camera forging a signature on a legal document. We had handwriting analysis confirming it. We had the document in front of him. I laid it all out. He looked at me with the calmest eyes you've ever seen and said, "That's not me on the video. That's not my signature, and I've never seen that piece of paper before in my life." He didn't flinch. There was no tell, no nervous twitch. He simply presented an alternate reality with such unshakable conviction that for a split second, even I felt a flicker of disorientation. This is what psychologists refer to as shamelessness as a tactic. An ordinary person experiences shame or at least discomfort when caught in a lie. The manipulator feels none of this, and the absence of that expected human reaction is profoundly destabilizing for their victim. In a relationship, this looks like your partner promising to attend a family dinner, then not showing up. When you confront them, they don't make an excuse. They say, "We never talked about that. I told you weeks ago I had a work commitment. You have a real problem with your memory." They will say this even if you have a calendar invitation you sent them. They are betting on the fact that confronting the lie is so exhausting, so crazy-making, that you will eventually give up. You'll stop trusting your own evidence because the emotional cost of the fight is too high. You begin to crave peace more than you crave truth, and just like that, they've won. They have established a dictatorship over reality within the confines of your relationship. Let me ask you this. Has anyone ever looked you dead in the eye and denied something you knew, with 100% certainty, to be true? How did it make you feel? Did you feel angry, or did you feel a strange, sinking feeling of dizziness, like the floor beneath you had suddenly turned to sand? That feeling is the point. It's the sensation of your own mind being deliberately and systematically dismantled. They aren't just trying to win an argument, they are trying to erase your ability to even form one. They are burning the history books and appointing themselves the sole author of your shared past, present, and future. When a target's sense of reality has been shattered through overt denial, they become a liability. They might talk to friends. They might seek outside validation. The manipulator cannot allow this. The next stage, therefore, is not just about control, but about containment. It is a two-pronged attack I call the siege. It involves building a wall around you, brick by brick, until you are completely cut off. This siege consists of credibility erosion followed by total isolation. One makes the other possible. Before they can lock you away from the world, they must first convince the world that you belong in a cage. First comes credibility erosion. This is a subtle but vicious public relations campaign waged against you. To your friends, the manipulator might say things like, "I'm really worried about her. She's been so emotional and forgetful lately. Have you noticed?" To your family, it's, "He's been under so much stress, he's been blowing things way out of proportion. I'm doing my best to keep him grounded." They are framing your reactions to their abuse as evidence of your instability. Your anger is hysteria. Your confusion is incompetence. Your fear is paranoia. They are recruiting your own support system to act as unwitting guards in your prison, convincing them that your cries for help are just symptoms of your inherent flaws. I handled a tragic estate dispute involving a sister, Margaret, and her brother Thomas. Thomas wanted their aging mother's house, so he began a campaign. He'd call Margaret's friends and say, "Has Margaret seemed a little off to you?" He'd tell other relatives that she was mismanaging their mother's finances, when in fact she was the one paying the bills. He'd create small, confusing situations and then use Margaret's frustrated reaction as proof. By the time he made his move to get power of attorney, the rest of the family already believed Margaret was unstable and emotionally compromised. They saw Thomas as the responsible, concerned brother, not the predator he was. He isolated her by turning her reputation to ash. Once your credibility with the outside world is damaged, the physical and emotional isolation becomes terrifyingly easy. This is the second part of the siege. Your friends stop calling as much because conversations with you have become dramatic or confusing. Your family starts treating you with kid gloves, second-guessing your judgment. The manipulator will accelerate this by manufacturing conflicts. "You know, your sister said she thinks you're being selfish." Or, "Your friend Mark called me. He's concerned you're not handling things well." They become the sole gatekeeper of information, twisting communications until you feel like no one is on your side. Soon, the only person you have left to turn to for comfort and validation is the very person who is orchestrating your collapse. This creates a trauma bond, a powerful and destructive attachment where the victim becomes dependent on their abuser. It's the psychological equivalent of Stockholm Syndrome. Have you ever felt a distance growing between you and your loved ones and you couldn't quite put your finger on why? Did you ever hear a rumor about yourself that seemed to have no origin, one that painted you as difficult or unstable? This is how the siege works. The manipulator knows that a person with a strong support system is a person who cannot be controlled. So they burn the village to capture the fortress. They don't just want your devotion, they want your complete and utter solitude, with them at the center of it. You are now in the heart of the fortress. Your reality has been rewritten, your confidence has been shattered, and your support system has been dismantled. You are isolated and dependent. This is the end game. This is Stage 5, Domination. At this point, the manipulation is no longer subtle. It doesn't need to be. The abuser has successfully created an environment where their control is nearly absolute. But there is always one final lock they put on the cage, a specific tool they use to ensure you can never leave. I call it the leverage point. Domination is about establishing a power dynamic that is so skewed, it's no longer a relationship, it's a hostage situation. This control can be financial, where they've taken over all the assets, leaving you with no resources to escape. It can be emotional, where they've convinced you that you are so fundamentally broken, so unlovable, that no one else would ever want you. Or it can be social, where they threaten to destroy your reputation with the lies they've been seeding for months if you ever try to expose them. They are no longer hiding their contempt for you. The charming mask from the idealization phase is gone, replaced by criticism, silent treatment, and unpredictable rage. You are walking on eggshells, constantly trying to manage their moods and avoid their disapproval, living in a state of perpetual anxiety. The leverage point is the ace they've been holding up their sleeve since the very beginning. Remember the reconnaissance phase, when they were gathering intelligence? This is where they used the most sensitive piece of information they found. I consulted on a case where a prominent politician was being controlled by his wife. During their courtship, he had confessed a deep, shameful secret about a mistake he made in his youth. For years, she used it as her leverage point. Whenever he tried to assert himself, to push back against her control, she would calmly say, "Don't make me have to tell people what I know about you." That was it. That was the checkmate move. His entire career, his entire identity, was tethered to that one piece of blackmail. He was completely dominated. This leverage is often something the manipulator has created themselves. For instance, they might encourage you to quit your job to follow your passion, only to later use your financial dependence on them as a tool of control. They might isolate you from your family so effectively that they become your only human contact, and the leverage is the threat of complete and total loneliness. The psychological principle at play is known as intermittent reinforcement. They will occasionally grant you a moment of kindness, a flicker of the charming person from the beginning. This is not a sign of change, it's the strategy of a gambler keeping the addict at the table. It gives you just enough hope to endure the abuse, making the bond even harder to break. You stay, hoping for the good times to return, not realizing the good times were never real to begin with. So, reflect on this. Do you feel trapped? Is there one specific thing, a secret, a financial dependency, a fear of being alone, the threat of losing your children, that feels like an impossible barrier to leaving? That is your leverage point. Identifying it is the first, most crucial step to disarming it. The abuser wants you to believe it's an unbreakable chain, but every lock has a key. The domination feels total, but it is an illusion constructed from your own fears. Fears they have meticulously studied and cultivated. They are not all-powerful, they are just very good at making you feel powerless. We've walked through the 5 stages of this insidious campaign. from the reconnaissance of idealization to the checkmate of domination. Seeing the blueprint is one thing, dismantling the prison is another. Most people focus on the why. Why is this happening? But in a tactical situation, why is a luxury. The only question that matters is how. How do I get out? This isn't about a dramatic confrontation or a tearful confession. Escaping a manipulator is an operation. You must become a detective in your own life. I call this final, crucial phase the extraction. It requires evidence, a secure channel, and a clear exit plan. First, you must gather your own intelligence. The gaslighter has spent months, maybe years, destroying your perception of reality. You need to rebuild it, piece by piece, with objective, undeniable proof. This is not for them, it is for you. Start a private journal. Write down the events as they happen. Note the date, the time, what was said, and how it made you feel. If they deny something they said via text, take a screenshot. If they make a promise and break it, document it. This journal becomes your anchor to reality. When you start to doubt yourself, when they tell you that never happened, you can go back to your own private file and see the truth in black and white. This is you, reestablishing your own mind as a credible source. You are moving from being the victim of their story to being the archivist of your own. Second, you must establish a secure line of communication. Isolation is the manipulator's most powerful weapon. You must break it, but you must do it carefully. Reach out to one person you trust, a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, a family member, or a professional therapist who understands emotional abuse. Do not start by accusing your partner. Remember, their credibility has likely been damaged. Instead, start with, "I've been feeling very confused lately, and I need an outside perspective. Can I tell you about a conversation I had and just get your take on it?" Present the facts. Read from your journal. Let the other person see the pattern for themselves. This person is not your rescuer. They are your lifeline. They are your confirmation that the sky is, in fact, blue, even when the person next to you insists it is green. Finally, you must devise an exit strategy. A safe extraction is planned in secret. Depending on your situation, this will look different. If there's a financial dependency, it might mean quietly opening a separate bank account and putting a little money in it whenever you can. It might mean reaching out to a shelter to understand your options. It might mean reconnecting with your professional network. The key is to take small, concrete steps to build a bridge to a life without them. Do not announce your intentions. Do not give them a warning. A cornered manipulator is a dangerous one. They will escalate. They will love bomb you again. They will promise to change. They will do anything to keep you in the cage. You must plan your departure like a covert operation, quietly, carefully, and decisively. The fear you feel is real. The helplessness is real. But your powerlessness is an illusion they have carefully constructed. You are not broken, you are not crazy, and you are not alone. You have been the subject of a sophisticated psychological campaign, and recognizing that is the beginning of your liberation. The first step is always the hardest. To trust your own gut, that small, quiet voice they tried so hard to silence. Listen to it. It's the best detective you'll ever have.